Today, we're filming at the very prestigious public Sleepy Ridge Golf Course here in Orem, Utah, with our featured guest, Mayor Richard Brunst. Father, I just thank you for this opportunity. I thank you for the graciousness of time of our mayor. Lord, I just thank you for the Holy Spirit that's here, and let everything that needs to be said in this segment, and let it bless our viewers and all the whosoever's out there. And Lord, I thank you for protecting our mayor and lifting him up. And thank you that he's such an example of excellence. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Welcome to the CHANDA Show. Today, we're going to be talking about the 12M. And you ask, what is the 12M? The 12M stands for the 12 mountains of cultural influence, spheres of influence. For example, 12M looks like this: family, politics, which are government, service, and business. And today, I have with us our honored guest, Mayor Richard Brunst of Orem, Utah. Mayor, you exemplify all of these qualities. You exemplify excellence. You are an exceptional man, and I'm so honored to have you as a guest today. And my hope is that as viewers, we can glean from the expertise of the mountain climbers that have gone to success, and that we can take this and apply it to our lives, and especially those of us that are in business. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for having me.
If you remember, I came to your office 2 years ago.
Yes.
Being a transplant from California, I wanted to know what's going on here in Orem.
Yes.
Do you remember?
I remember our visit, yes.
And I said, what's the pulse here? What's the vision? And without missing a beat, you said you saw from the beginning, from the end to the beginning, rather. So that's very rare. And I'm going to say it again. He has the ability to see the end result from the beginning. So
Begin with the end in mind.
that's right.
Yes.
That's right. And very few people in leadership are able to do that, or that even understand what the concept is. And when you said so succinctly your vision and then the opposition that you faced in between, I was blown away. Like, I was very impressed because you owned it. You had that vision so rock solid, and you were already implementing it. No matter what opposition came your way, you stayed focused. And you had so many projects going on, but some of the big ones that we see day-to-day life are University Parkway in Orem, the bus line that wasn't even there. I remember asking him, we have the biggest college or university now in Orem, and I don't see any students. And he says, I'm taking care of that. I'm getting a bus line in here. That's a great story. And then there's Midtown, which is, would you call it condominium? Or?
Yes, it was an 8-story condominium project that failed during the recession.
And look at it now.
And now it's completed. It's 100% leased. 500 apartments and commercial on the main floor, all leased out.
Yes, so it's a live work, and it's gorgeous. It looks like Mediterranean style. It's absolutely amazing. And then University Place Mall.
Yes, so our mall was dying at the time when I first became mayor. We had 2 out of the 3 anchor stores were empty, 10 of the regular stores were empty, and 14 kiosks were empty. And it was to the point that the owners either had to sell or just milk it for what it had until it died, or refurbish it. And so it was our desire as a city, together with the owners, to see that mall refurbished.
And didn't you also tell me that it's commanding the highest lease rates?
It's commanding very high lease rates, yes.
Yeah.
And it's doing very, very well.
It is. It's always busy there and thriving.
Yes.
And a good friend of ours who owns True Religion, you must go eat there.
Yes.
Have you been there?
I have eaten
it's
there,
excellent.
yes. Love it.
And there's a whole story on how True Religion came to be, so you must go ask for Crystal.
And that's in Midtown 360.
And that's in Midtown 360. Awesome. So share with us some more on this whole track of what you had to face and your vision and everything that just came to be with these projects.
Sure. So when I was elected mayor, the reason that I ran was to work on issues in the city. And I thought there were areas of the city that we could accomplish things with. Mm-hmm. So the first one was Midtown 360. Again, this is an 8-story complex in the middle of Orem on State Street. It had been vacant for 5 years. When I was running for election, people were telling me that is either the number 1 or number 2 issue that they would like to get solved, because it looked like burned out Lebanon in the middle of Orem. The insulation was flying in the wind, the weeds were high, the fences were down, the copper had been stolen, the units were vacant, and it was in disarray. So when I was running for mayor, I went down there one July 4th weekend. I walked around and looked at Midtown, and I thought, this could be a beautiful project. Why isn't it done? So I contacted the owner of Midtown. Midtown went into bankruptcy, and 33 subcontractors lost tremendous amounts of money. Over $100 million was lost on the project between some of the owners that were trying to buy units and the subcontractors. So the subcontractors actually bought it out of bankruptcy with the hopes that they could gather back some of their money, recoup some of their investment. So I called up the owner of the LLC, the head of the LLC, and said, could I meet with you at Midtown and could we talk about it? So he said, sure. So he said, I will send down our project manager, and we have a facility manager on site. You can meet both of them and talk about it. So I met with them in an apartment there, and as I was sitting there, I looked at the facility manager and I said, you know, nobody's here. You haven't finished but 5% of the units. It looks to me like nobody wants to live here. And he said, no, you're wrong. He said, we're turning 30 families away a month that want to live here, but we have no money to finish the units. The project manager was sitting on the other end of the table and said, I don't know what you're talking about. We've got all the money in the world. We can finish any unit you want. But we didn't think anybody wanted to live here.
Oh.
And I said, well, have the two of you talked about this before? And the project manager was new, and he said, no, we've not discussed this before. And I said, well, I would challenge you to immediately begin finishing additional units, and you put it out for lease, and let's start the ball rolling, which we did. They immediately got 5 units finished, and they were leased as soon as they were finished. And I asked them, I said, what is it that you really need? And they said, we need a developer to come in here and finish this project. We're a contractor, we're a builder, but we're not a developer. And I said, well, I know some developers. I'm not a developer either, but I know some. Why don't you let me bring a developer to you? And they said, that'd be great. And I said, how about 2 weeks from now on a Tuesday? And they said, great, bring your developer. So 2 weeks on Tuesday, I'm getting ready to come with a developer that I had looked for and found. And I got a call the day before, and they said, Mayor, I'm sorry, at this time I was still not yet mayor, and they said, Richard, we can't have you come. The owner of the LLC has somebody else that is going to finish the project, so you're out, they're in, and we're sorry. And I said, it doesn't matter, we just want the project finished. Whoever you want to pick is fine by us. So we let it go, and then 2 weeks later I got a phone call, and they said, is your developer still available? And I said, yes. And they said, well, could you bring him by next week on a Tuesday again, and we'll talk. And I said, great. And on Monday I got a phone call, said, Richard, we're really sorry, but the owner of the LLC has got another party that's interested in it. He wants to have them buy it, so your developer is out, his developer is in, and goodbye. And I said, again, that's fine, let's just get it done. 2 weeks later, I got a third phone call, said, Richard, is your developer still available? And I said, yes. And they said, well, the other two canceled. They're not coming through. So please bring your developer by to our construction office in the town next to this city, and let's meet. So we did, and we signed a contract. My developer signed a contract offer, no contingencies, no holdbacks, no discounts. Everything that the LLC wanted, he gave, and they were going to have a board of directors meeting the following week, and the owner of the LLC said, "This is wonderful. This is exactly what we want. You're in first place. We'll put it through to the board, and everything should go well." We said, "Great." And they were going to meet the following Wednesday. So the following Wednesday came and went, and there was no phone call. Thursday came, and the end of the day, I finally got a phone call. And the owner of the LLC said, actually it was the project manager, said, "I'm really sorry, but we had somebody come in after you. They offered $100,000 more for the project than your developer. They offered to get it done in 30 days quicker due diligence time. And so actually you're out and they're in, and we're sorry." And I said, "Again, it's okay. We just want to get the project done." So they proceeded working on the project. During that interim, I was elected mayor. So as mayor, I was working with them. Now the city owned the parking garage underneath the project. We had put a bond. The banks required that we had put a bond on the parking garage and own that. It was about a $4.5 million bond. And we were in first place on the project if anything went wrong and they didn't pay the bond. So the developer that the owner of the LLC brought in called me up and said, "Mayor, would you finance the parking garage? Would the city finance the parking garage for me so that I can complete this project?" And I said, "Well, let me look at it." And I went to my city manager and I said, "They want us to finance the parking garage. As a previous businessman, I am totally against the idea of financing the parking garage, for the main reason that if they can't even pay for the parking garage, they don't have enough money to pay for the project nor to finish the project." So I met with my city council and the city manager, and we all agreed, and the city attorney, and we wrote a letter and said, "We refuse to finance the parking garage. You will have to pay cash." The owner of the LLC received our letter, wrote me an email back and said, "Mayor, it's obvious that you and the city council and the city staff are not behind us and are not going to support us. I don't appreciate the fact that you're not going to finance this. In fact, by not doing that, you're canceling out 75% of the possible buyers for this project. And I don't appreciate your attitude, and goodbye." And that was that. Well, when I got that back, as I thought about it again as a business owner, I thought, the problem we have here is that we're inviting, the LLC's inviting their friends to bid on the project, but they're not looking at their track records. So I wrote an email back to the head of the LLC and I said, "You're not looking at their track records, you're not looking at their financing, you're not looking at their vision, you're not looking at what they bring to the project. And I think you need to change what you're doing." And they had 18 offers on the project and 3 hard cash deposits and still had not gotten it done. And I said, "The fact that you have not gotten it done during this time with all of that interest tells me that you're not doing it the right way and you need to change." Well, that made the owner of the LLC very upset. So he sent me another email back and said, "Mayor," he said, "I don't want to hear your comments. I don't want to hear your advice." He said, I dislike your attitude, and goodbye." And so that was it. And so I thought, well, it's whoever you want to get, it's fine by me. And the developer that I had met with their finance company out of California twice. I'd met with their architect. I'd met with some of their subs. I knew their track record. I looked at the projects that they had done successfully. I knew that this developer could do this project and would be a great asset. So this went for about 4 more months. And then I got a call from a local business owner who sits on the board of directors of this LLC. And he called me up and he said, "Mayor, is your developer still available? And is he still interested? Because we have a board of directors meeting in 2 hours and they want to know." And he said, "By the way, we have 5 new buyers that want to buy this project that are ahead of you now." And I said, "Okay." I said, "The developer is available. He's still interested. And he would love to talk to you." So I put them on the phone together. They talked for 2 hours. This board member went into the board of directors and sat down. I don't know exactly how that went, but I believe what happened was that the owner of the LLC finally said, you know what? The mayor thinks he can solve this problem and we keep failing. Let's let him try it and watch him fail. So we're going to go ahead and let his developer have a stab at it. So they came out, they put the other 5 buyers off and said, Mayor, your developer is in, and you go ahead and let him know, and then he can work directly with us. So I notified him, the 2 of them got together, and then they worked through the project. Interestingly enough, after they had signed their deal between them, the first thing the developer did was he came in and he paid cash to the city for the parking garage. He paid that off. He then paid cash to the LLC for the entire project and paid all of that off. He then had the money in the bank to refurbish the entire project. So 8 weeks later, the head of the LLC called me up. Well, actually, he wrote me an email, and he said, Mayor, I'm on cloud 9. I can't believe this is happening. This is wonderful. We're getting the project developed.
Yeah.
And the project today is completely finished, 100% leased. They changed the condos to apartments. They have 500 apartments, 100% leased. The bottom floor is commercial and retail. It is 100% leased. We have True Religion restaurant there with some other really high-class restaurants.
Yes.
And the project is beautiful.
Yes.
It's an asset to the city, and it's
Yes,
doing
it
really
is.
well.
Yes.
But I had to sit there and say, I know where this can go, and even though you keep turning me down and pushing me away, I think I know how we can get this done if you'll let me do it. And so we did that. So that's a great story, and was one of my campaign promises that I would get that done.
There's so much I just want to add to this. I mean, just bravo. I love that story, because it is these are the keys. This is the key to winning, and a win-win for everybody. And what I'm extracting out of just that one story is wisdom. You were solution oriented. You kept giving it back because you had the solution in mind, and it didn't matter if it was you or it was them. Just let's get this done.
Yes.
And then favor. So there was extreme favor poured in, where everything started being paid by cash, and that is just a remarkable story. Even he had to say, I can't believe this is happening. That is so awesome.
And once they changed the way they were doing it and the direction, then it was possible to make it happen.
Yes.
To me, it came down to having an additional set of eyeballs on the project, looking at it from a different angle to see why it had failed 18 times.
Yes.
And then making that change.
That's right.
And then it happened.
And the biggest thing is, you didn't get offended.
No.
You didn't take it personally.
Nope.
You never got offended. You just kept the vision,
Yes.
before you. And I think a lot of people get in their own ways because they get offended.
Yes.
And they feel a loss. Oh, the project's not mine. It got taken away. It came right back to you. And it came back to you in spades.
Yes.
That was a complete win-win. And Orem is doing so well because of it.
Yes.
So thank you.
You bet.
Perseverance.
Yes. So, and I could see what could become of that project.
Yeah,
and it was
you
just
saw it.
getting the right person
That's right.
that had the means to do that.
That's
So
right.
the next project that we were facing was the University Place Mall.
Yes.
And again, malls throughout the country have been failing, having lots of problems. There's a mall in Ohio, Rolling Hills Mall, that was built the same time as University Mall, about the same size. That mall today, it was bankrupted. It was given back to the city for $1, and the owners walked away.
Wow.
The windows were shot out of it. The escalators were damaged. All the stores had left, and that mall has since now been demolished.
Wow.
We didn't want that to happen in Orem. And our mall was facing the same problems other malls. We lost Nordstrom's, we lost Mervyn's, we lost 10 other stores, and we were having some real problems. So the owners of the mall, the Woodbury family, owns a lot of real estate in the Intermountain West. They came to the city and said, this is kind of our legacy mall, and we want to refurbish it, and we will put $200 million into refurbishing it. But if you were to do a community development agreement,
Mm-hmm.
which is a post-performance tax incentive, we will invest $500 million into the mall.
Wow.
The mall was worth $130 million at the time and sits on 100 acres in the center of Orem. So I looked at that, and a post-performance tax incentive means that the property tax that the owners will pay, they will then take 75% of that, and actually we will take 75% of it and give it back to them over a period of 20 years where they reinvest it into the project, into infrastructure to make the project bigger. And by doing that, then the property tax at the end of that 20 years is 4 times what it was at the beginning. So, for example, to the local school district,
Right.
$90 million of new property tax over the next 20 years after the project is done will flow through to the schools in our community.
That's awesome.
That is
Thank
awesome.
you.
So I like the CDA, the council liked the CDA, our staff and city manager worked on that, and we put together this community development agreement, which the state of Utah allows within the cities. After we passed it, a group of citizens said, wait a minute, we don't like this idea, we don't think you should be doing this, and we think that you are giving favors and causing problems for the other businesses, and this will not be a good solution for our city. So they decided to start a referendum. So a referendum would mean that they would force our decision, our council decision, to be put on the ballot a year and a half later, and the citizens would vote on it. Now, I as a mayor am in favor of referendums. I believe the citizens should have a right to vote on things that are of a major concern to them. But in this case, I felt like that if the people really understood what we were doing, that they would be in favor of it.
Right.
So I sat down with our city manager and I said, I don't want to fight the referendum. I don't want to go up against the residents that are backing this. What I would like to do is a positive educational program to let the residents know why this would be a benefit to our city.
Perfect.
So he agreed. We contacted the owners of the mall. They agreed. I requested that we hire a campaign manager to run a positive informational campaign. They agreed to do that. So we set up 4 open houses. The first one was in the mall at their gathering space at the top of the mall. And then I requested that they not hold them any longer there, but rather down in the food court where the people are walking by, and that we actually take a food store that was vacant. We put charts in there, we put pictures, we put diagrams, we put figures in there as to how it would work and let people know about it.
May I interject just
Sure.
on that point? I remember that, and it was brilliant. And viewers, if you remember, we did the 3D visioning. This is exactly what I'm talking about. It wasn't just paper, it was 3-dimensional. So
Yes.
you could put yourself right in the scene. That
Yes.
was brilliant, Mary.
Yes.
That was brilliant.
Well, thank you. So the very first meeting we had, open house we had, I emceed all 4 open houses, and we invited all 3 generations of the Woodbury family,
Oh,
who are the
awesome.
owners of the mall, to come and stand behind me and to answer any question from any person. We invited all those that were running the petition, the signers of the petition, those that were against it, the yellers, the screamers, the residents that were in favor. We invited everybody to come. The very first question out of the box was from a gentleman who started yelling at me. And then his son stood up and started yelling at me. And I couldn't get them to be quiet. I finally had to walk around the podium, walk up to him nose to nose, and ask him to sit down and be quiet so we could carry forward with our program and allow for questions from the rest of the
Very good.
audience. So they did, and we held our open house. We then held the other open houses. Interestingly enough, during the open houses, people started bringing their petitions to us and said, we're not going to carry them anymore. Here, throw them away. Other people came in and said, can you please help me get my name off the petitions?
Wow.
There's a way to do that. And we had an individual there who helped them take their name off the petitions. And at the end of the day, after the open houses, the referendum did not gather enough signatures and died. Now, during the open houses, we put up charts and pictures, and the mall owners came to me and said, here's what we want, together with their CPA. We want to do a chart this big with this many figures showing what's going to happen with the property tax, etc. And I said, no, I refuse. I'm not going to do that. I want a chart that shows beginning and end and the middle, and it shows with and without it. It has only 6 figures, so that within the first 3 minutes you walk into the room, you'll know whether you're in favor or against. And they fought me on it, and they finally said, all right, Mayor, we're going to let you have your way. And so that's what we did. So everybody could tell right off the bat. Now, we had to get approval from 5 taxing entities to put forward the CDA to let that go through, and one of them was the Alpine School District. And they're 65% of the property tax. So they have to agree to allow their property tax to be used for infrastructure for 20 years and then have a much greater building net worth and a much higher property tax rate revenue stream later. Well, interestingly enough, the school board had to vote on it, and some members of the school board were not in favor. So I asked the governor, who's a friend of mine, if he would write a letter, and he's an Orem resident, favoring what we were trying to do. And he said, Mayor, I love what you're doing, but I can't write a letter. It's your program, it's your city, and you're going to have to do it alone. And I said, okay. So I waited a month, and I called up the governor again. I said, Governor, I need your help. I need a letter from you. It would mean a lot, and I think you could help the school board understand how important this is. He said, okay, let me know what it is you need. Write down what the points you want me to cover, and I will take a look at it. Again, no answer back, nothing written. So I called up a third time, and I talked to his secretary, and the secretary said, well, he's not here today. You know where he lives in Orem. Why don't you see him tomorrow on Saturday? Just go over to his house. And one of our city council members lives right next door to him. So I went over to his house the next day, and he just got home from playing golf. And we sat down, and I explained everything to him, and he said, Mayor, you know what? I will write you the letter. He said, I will verbally support you any way I can. Let's do it. I'm all in favor. Let's do it. So I received the letter 2 hours before the board meeting was for the Alpine School District. It was the day before Thanksgiving. I was headed out with my family to Arizona to see the rest of my family. And when I got the letter, I needed to stay and read the letter and get the vote. So they left on a plane without me. My ticket was wasted. But I stood there and read the letter, and we got a positive vote. So that's why we were able to do the CDA. And then the referendum died, and so then we went ahead and put the project in. Now, I mentioned in the open house, I said, you know, this is going to lift all ships in Orem.
Yes.
I understand that you have concerns that this is going to hurt this area or this area. And I said, it's really not, because when this mall is refurbished and redone and reinvented, you're going to see a beautiful project, and we're going to have a triple X factor. So 500 million is coming in, but that will actually multiply by 3 throughout the community. I said, even to the point that the McDonald's across the street from the city center will get much busier than it is now. Well, during the time the project has been going in, they tore down that McDonald's and built one twice as big because they're twice as busy. And that's what's happening in Orem. We have restaurants across the street. Outback Steakhouse tore their building down and built a brand new one. Golden Corral is tearing theirs down and building a new one. Our car dealerships have all changed their fronts, and one of them has doubled in size.
That's right.
We have restaurants coming from other cities moving to the mall.
That's right.
Trader Joe's wanted to come and expand in Utah County. They were looking at other cities, and when they saw what was going on at the mall, they said, no, we're going to the University Place Mall. Right now, we have a new office building there, 100% leased, so it's now a mixed-use facility. So what happened was the owners of the mall tore down one of the anchor stores and put in a community park. Now, most people would say, why would you ever do that? But the vision is a mixed-use facility, residential, retail, and commercial. So we have a brand new commercial building. We have 1,000 new residential apartments, 100% leased. We have beautiful retail. The inside of the mall has been completely refurbished, new tile, new paint, new LED lights. We have a new office building that's another new office building going up with a parking garage underneath it and the office building on top. We have a brand new Marriott courtyard going in on the property next to the mall. We have a theater that's looking to come in to that area that's trying to get funded. We have new restaurants coming in all the time, and that's a very, very busy place, and it's doing extremely well.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned another movie theater coming in?
Yes.
Well, so we already
I'm
have...
sorry, not a movie theater.
Not a movie theater.
So, no, this is a regular theater where they show plays.
Oh, amazing.
Yes.
As a Californian, we love our culture.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we
Thank
have-
you. I'm like over the top excited about that.
Yes, we have
I'm
great culture.
over the top excited about that.
And our city loves the arts. We have one of the best theaters around in the Sierra Theater.
Yes.
That's part of our
Yes.
heritage. And we also have the Hale Center Theater in another part of town in a building that is not a great building. And so they're going to move, and that's what the new building is for, is for the Hale.
I want to skip back to the University Place Mall Park.
Sure.
That is an amazing space for families. When I saw that go in, not only is it visually just aesthetically pleasing, it's functional, it's inviting. There's cabanas with tables and chairs that you can sit at, have lunch at, and then you put in the Bellagio style
Yes.
fountain,
Actually
including
designed by the
music.
same people.
No kidding,
Yes,
is that
designed
right?
by the same people, and it's
I love it.
Yes, and it's a water show. It's
It
colored
is.
lights.
It
It's
is.
music.
Oh, we love it.
Yes.
We love it.
Yes.
Oh, see it, all the exceptional touches.
Yes, and it's
Just
all
brilliant.
coming together.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, it's lifting our entire city.
It
We've
totally
had
is.
300 new businesses that have come
Yes.
in since we've started to refurbish the mall.
Yes.
Our retail sales tax revenue is up 33%
Bravo.
in the last 7 years. If you look at
Bravo.
other cities, theirs are down.
Yeah.
Ours is up tremendously. And we have bleed in from other cities.
Yes.
One city is showing that 60% of their residents do their shopping in Orem.
Yeah.
Another city, 70% of their residents do their shopping in Orem. I just had a gentleman that I had lunch with last week who said when he comes from Spanish Fork,
Yeah.
he passes everything and comes to
That's
the
right.
University Place Mall because it's an exciting, beautiful, wonderful place to be.
Yeah, it's an experience.
Yes.
It really is.
Yes.
And the safety factor here is, we'll talk on that in a little bit, but it's, you feel safe. We have wonderful security.
Yes.
Since I've been here 5 years, there's never been
We
a
are the
problem.
17th safest city in the nation.
Yeah, that's why they call it Happy Valley, right?
Yes.
One of the reasons, yeah.
Yes. So at the mall, we had a restaurant move from another city. Their sales went up by 30% when they came to the mall. Another restaurant moved from another city and came, had the same effect occur to them. And then we had a large furniture store, had a store here and a store in another city, and they combined them and moved and became an anchor store. Which
May I say that's R.C. Willie?
R.C. Willie.
Because my mother bought all her furniture from them when we relocated, so we got to know them really well.
And
Yeah,
their
they're
sales are up
awesome.
30%
Yes.
since they moved to the mall.
That is a beautiful store.
It
That
is.
is an experience just to go into.
It is.
It's
It has a
gorgeous.
2-story waterfall,
Yes.
rock waterfall.
Yes.
It's a wonderful place.
Yes.
Yes. So that's been a real mainstay, and those are
Yeah.
kind of bookends, Midtown and the University Place Mall. And then the third project that you mentioned that we worked hard on was a mass transit line for our community. So this mass transit line had been in the works about 7 years when I became mayor, and they were trying to get it funded and worked out. So the way it was going to be funded was a third by the federal government, a third by through a bond, and a third through a quarter-cent sales tax. And when I came in, we were discussing what to do and how to do it. And I sit on various committees, government committees, where we come together and discuss transportation, and we discuss air quality and lots of things like that. Well, one of the meetings that I was supposed to go at was a Metropolitan Planning Organization Finance Committee meeting, and it was noon on a Thursday. And there are 12 mayors that are part of the committee. There are county commissioners that are part of the committee, and planning individuals. Well, not everybody can always make these meetings, but I try very hard to make all my meetings. So I went to this one meeting, and as I'm there, one of the parties that was going to fund the bond and float the bond, which was the Utah Transit Authority, walked in and said, you know what, we're getting a lot of pressure from a lot of citizens that we're not running our organization the way it should be run, and so we are going to have to walk away from bonding for this project, and we cannot participate. And that killed the project right there after 8 years. So, and I was the only mayor there. And I looked at that, and so I started talking to the other gentlemen that were involved with this on the planning organization, and they said, well, not only have you lost the bond, but you've also lost the ability to pay for lost opportunity costs and for maintenance and operation costs. So your project is dead. So at that point in time, I called up Mayor John Curtis of Provo, who's now the congressman in our area, U.S. congressman, and I said, we need an emergency meeting next Tuesday, and I need you to be there. And I called up the county commissioners, and I said, I need you to be there. And I called up UTA, and I said, I need you to be there, and let's all sit down in a room, this small group, and let's try to work this through. So we sat down. Mayor Curtis was able to get the county to then take the bond. They originally had the bond and walked away from it. UTA had the bond and walked away from it. He was able to get the county to come back in and agree to go ahead and float the bond. And then I worked hard on the maintenance costs, the operations cost, and the lost opportunity costs, and I figured out a way to get those paid for. So we came out of that meeting. A week later, we went into our regional planning meeting for transportation with all the mayors of the county. We had to get them to approve what we were trying to do, and this transit line only covers 2 cities, Orem and Provo. Anyway, we got them to agree to approve it, and then Mayor Curtis, the head of UTA, county commissioner, and myself flew back to Washington, D.C. and met with the Transportation Department of Transportation, and showed them the project, told them we thought this was a good project, wanted a small starts grant to do it. There were 120 people vying for a new small starts grant for mass transit, and they only had 6 spots that they could give, only 6 grants out of 120 applicants. Wow. So we tried hard. We were able to get our foot in the door. We went back and met with them again, came back home. They said it looks like, you know, it's going to go your direction, and we were excited about that. And then I got a call from the head of the UTA, and he said, Mayor, I'm sorry to tell you, but President Obama has taken the Small Starts Grant program out of the 2016 budget, and the project is dead. There is no grant. We have no funding, and it's over. And he said, but if you want, if you could, if you would, if you'd call up Senator Orrin Hatch's office, because the U.S. Senate is in session over the weekend working on the budget, if you'll call him and see if you can persuade him to go on the floor and have Senator Hatch go on the floor and push to get this Small Starts Grant put back in the budget, we sure would appreciate your help. So I spent the next 3 days on the phone with Senator Orrin's staff, with his chief of staff, and we worked on it, and Senator Orrin Hatch went to the floor. He fought for it. He got it put back in the budget, and we got refunded, and then we were good to go. So we lost our funding twice, and were able to get it back. Now, that wasn't the only problem. We had 2 lawsuits against the project. We won both lawsuits, and they did not go forward. And then we had the county commissioner and some others lead 2 referendums against us. We fought both referendums. We won both referendums, and now the UVX line is operational, and it's doing beautiful. Another part to this is if you operate a mass transit line that is free and is frequent, your ridership doubles. So I wanted to make this free, a no-fare mass transit line.
Wow, I didn't know
So,
that.
yes, so we went to UVU, which is one of the universities on the line.
Mm-hmm.
We went to BYU, one of the universities on the line, and we said, could you pay for your students to ride this line, because we think that that will eliminate a lot of cars coming to the university, a lot of traffic congestion, a lot of air pollution, and will be a help. UVU said, yes, we will pay $1 million a year for the next 10 years to pay for our students for their tickets. BYU said, yes, we'll pay $1 million a year for the next 10 years to pay for our students. So we had that part of it, and then I wanted to get a federal grant to open it up for anybody who wanted to ride the line to ride for free. It's called a CMAQ grant, and it's for traffic congestion and air pollution mitigation. I went back to Congressman Curtis in Washington and asked him to write a letter of support for me, which he did. I met with Senator Orem in Washington, asked him to write a letter of support for me on it, which he did. I then took it to our transportation committee with the other mayors and said, I think this is what we should do. Staff was supportive, and one of the county commissioners said, I disagree, I don't want to do it, let's see how it works without it. And and he made a motion to cancel my motion. And so I fought hard. We had a discussion, heated discussion for a half hour in front of all the mayors in the county, and then we took a vote. The mayors sided with me, did not side with him. We got the CMAQ money. We have it for 3 years. I believe that we can renew it again 3 years from now. But right now, everybody in the county rides for free. And our ridership has gone up. In that area, we used to have 1,500 rides and buses. We're now 10 times that amount at 14 to 15,000 ridership per day.
Yes,
And
you
it's
can
beautiful.
see that. It is beautiful. That's beautiful. And then the edification that you did to University Parkway is mind-blowing. You ripped up sidewalks.
So when
and
we
put-
did this,
Yeah.
we widened the road, but we
Yes.
not only widened the road, we tore everything up.
Yep.
We put in all brand new landscaping on the side,
Yes.
in the center. We have beautiful trees,
Yes.
beautiful lights,
Yes.
Beautiful bushes and
Yes.
flowers on the
Yes.
side.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful roadway right down the middle of our
It
city.
is. It's actually stunning when you're coming off the I-15 going up. What would that direction be, Mayor?
So going
So-
northeast.
Yeah, northeast. It's
And then
breathtaking.
southeast.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're coming right into the mountains and just this gorgeous landscaping. It's breathtaking.
Array of flowers and trees.
Yeah,
Yes.
breathtaking. Breathtaking.
And what's interesting is what UVU noticed was that students, as I've mentioned, are using this.
Yes.
Well, by using it, they're not bringing their cars to the university.
Yes.
They had over 1,000 parking passes not purchased last year because they're using the bus instead of their
That's
cars.
awesome.
That's an entire parking lot at the university
Yes.
that is not being used, that can be used for classrooms,
Yeah.
for athletics, for some other purpose.
Yes.
And they're excited about the
Yeah.
fact that their car ridership is down
Yeah.
and that people are using
Yes.
mass transit.
In fact, they've torn up a whole chunk of that
Yes.
as you're coming in through the roundabout. What's that building going to be?
So that's
is that
gonna be
the
a new business building,
Business
yes.
building, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So
Awesome.
each one of those projects had quite a few hurdles that we had to face and get through.
No.
But when people understood exactly what they would do for the city and what they were about, the residents are supportive. And so they love our mass transit line. And the end of this story that I need to tell you is about 2 years ago, I was walking through the mall. Remember when I told you the very first open house at the mall?
Yes.
The gentleman stood up and started yelling at me, and
Yes.
his son stood up and started yelling at
Yes.
me. Well, about 2 years ago, I was walking in the mall, and the gentleman who was yelling at me was walking towards me on the other side with his wife. And when he saw me, he turned and made a beeline to me and came right over. And he shook my hand. He said, Mayor, I have to tell you something. He said, I yelled at you. I was screaming at you. I didn't like what you were doing. But he said, the mall looks great. This whole area looks great.
Bravo.
It's turned out exactly the way you said.
That's
and
right.
it's helping our community.
That's
He
right.
said, I support it. This is wonderful.
That's right.
And I said, thank you.
That's right. You know, on your brochure, it says right on the top, results matter.
Yes.
You know, history keeps repeating itself, but there's few presidents that have that anointing. And as I'm re-listening to you and reflecting from our first meeting, I'm like, he's got that anointing all over him. And everything you do prospers and is blessed because that anointing is on you, Mayor. And then everyone in contact with you is prospering and has favor because the anointing from you goes on to them. Do you see that? Can you see that thread in your life? Do you see that?
Kind of, as you mentioned it.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I have felt a lot of
amazing.
outside help as serving as mayor.
Yeah.
So a lot of unusual things have happened.
I see that the projects that, you know, you've accomplished, and there's still many more to go. In my mind and what I've seen, it seems that they were done on an accelerated pace and that you've actually accomplished these tasks, these projects, ahead of schedule.
We've done some work ahead of schedule, some work on schedule, and we're still doing some work. One thing I did want to mention is that all of this work, a lot of work that happens in the government, happens through consensus and through people working together. So a lot of hands have gone in to make these things happen. The city council has done a wonderful job in working to make these things happen. The city manager has worked hard. The county commissioners, our mountain land area government has done a lot. UTA has done a lot. And our senator and Congressman Curtis and Orem Hatch. So there have been a lot of hands in the pie to make this happen, and it's really a community effort, and
Yes.
I just always want to thank them and make sure that they're properly recognized for the
Yes.
efforts that they put forward.
Yes, which is a very strong point that never have I heard you say, I did. You're always inclusive and you always reach out. You're a phenomenal networker. I think that brings you great joy and satisfaction is your natural ability to bring others in from all areas. You even reached out to people in California to have the project happen here. And I think that's really commendable that you're so selfless and so confident within yourself that you don't have to have everything riding on you, that you share. And
Sure.
that's really the 12 mountains, and that's really kingdom. So I applaud
Sure.
you for that. Thank you.
You bet.
Which brings me to this next point. As you can see, how relatable and approachable you are. I mean, what you're seeing here is what you get. I've ran into you at In-N-Out. We
Yes.
met again at the 2020 Tech Summit in Salt Lake. And you're consistently just genuine, open, approachable. What do you attribute that to? And it's so rare in government. How is that? I don't know a better way to ask that. Just
Sure.
how are you like that? How are you?
Well, the only thing I can say is, first of all, I had wonderful parents, and they were very outgoing, civic-minded, wonderful people, very supportive, always believed in me. The other thing, I spent a lot of time reading on ways to work with people and to be cognizant of other people's strengths and abilities, and to be open to that. And you know, it's interesting, when I go to a lot of government functions, a lot of meetings. I was at a Eggs and Issues breakfast this morning with the legislators and a bunch of people within our county. Well, typically when I go to these meetings, being where I know a bunch of people, everybody will sit together that they know each other.
Right.
Or if I have city people there, you know, the city people all come together and sit there. But I've tried to make it a goal that I won't sit with people that I know or with city people, and I always try to find somebody that I don't know that I can sit with, that I can learn from and get to know. And as an example, today I went to sit next to a couple I didn't know and found out they're transplants. They've just moved up here, and it's a mother-son, and the mother is very active in politics in California and wants to get involved in government, city government, here in Utah. So we've exchanged business cards, and would love to get her to work on a committee to start to get to know people and to help our community. So I've always found it very valuable to get to know new people and to learn from them.
That's great. I call it living out loud. When you really are putting your best self forward, you're not in yourself. You're living out, and then you're connecting and connected to everyone, and that's really what it's all about.
Yes.
Thank you for that. What's your vision now, in a nutshell, for Orem? You've done so much already. What do you see continuing on?
Well, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and as such, we have temples, and I've always thought about Orem.
Mm-hmm.
So one day I was coming down off the freeway. This was 4 years ago, and
is this your vision?
Yes.
I just heard about it.
Yes.
Why am I not surprised?
I came down off the freeway at 1600 North and from Salt Lake, and I don't know why, but I looked up, and this strong impression came to me that Orem needed to have a temple and would have a temple, and I could see a temple coming into Orem.
Wow.
And I went home and told my wife, and she said, "You're absolutely crazy." She said, "There is no way anybody at the church is going to build a temple in Orem, because we have 2 temples in Provo, we have a temple in in American Fork, so we have 3 temples right around us. There's no logical reason why a temple would be built in Orem." And I said, "Well, be that as it may, I'm going to go ahead and write the First Presidency of the church a letter and explain why I thought a temple should be built here." I said, in the city of Orem, we're 70 to 80% members of this particular church, and we have members of lots of churches in Orem, and I know many of them and love them and go to a lot of interfaith activities and enjoy them. But anyway, I felt like because of our high percentage of membership, this would be a good place. The other thing is, Vineyard is growing from 1,000 residents to 70,000 residents. Right now there are about 15,000 residents. And our university is growing, another 2,000, 3,000 students last year. This should be a really good area for a temple. So I wrote all that down in my letter to the First Presidency, and the temple committee that took my letter wrote back and said, "We are going to pass it on to the First Presidency. We appreciated all the information you gave us, and we're going to actually try to promote your impression and move it along." So here we are 4 to 5 years later, and the church has announced they're building a new temple in Orem, and I've met with the temple committee, and they should start construction late this year, first part of next year. And that's pretty exciting news. So that's part of my vision for the future.
That's amazing. Just to interject there, not only do you have vision, but you're also what's called a vision holder. When I heard the news just months ago, I thought it was something that just happened. Like it was decided this is where it's going to be, and it just happened. But I'm hearing you say 4 or 5 years ago.
Yes. It
That's
was in
holding a vision.
2015
Brilliant.
that I wrote the letter,
Brilliant.
and that I had the impression.
Brilliant.
So that's really exciting, and that's going to be a beautiful edifice in our city. The next area that we're looking at is we provide fire protection services for Vineyard to the west and Linden to the north. So when Vineyard adds another 3,000 residents or so, 4,000, then they're going to build a new fire station, and we will man it with our fire department.
Awesome.
For the area. So that's number 2. Number 3 is the Hale Center Theater.
Yeah.
We're looking. They have to raise the funds, and we're working with them. So that's not a given, but that's a area to put in a beautiful theater right north of the park that they're working on. The mall owners are working on, we're working on.
So would the Hale Theater move?
Yes. They would sell the house that they're in,
right,
and then build a brand new theater, similar to what's at 90th South,
yes,
only not so many parts to it. So they'll have one big 500-seat theater, and then a smaller little area, and then that'll be it. But
bravo. Bravo.
And then the last area is our city center. So we're building a brand new, and I haven't talked about this, we're building a brand new library auditorium, 500-seat auditorium in front of our city center right now, to be completed later this year. We're building a brand new dry side of the recreation center to be completed next year. But our city center building, our city offices, were built prior to any seismic code regulations. So we do not meet any seismic code regulations. In fact, we do not meet any mechanical codes. We do not meet any electrical codes, any roofing codes. We have a building that is 50 years old that is in not good condition. It's not good for safety. It's not good for current electrical needs. It's not good for security. And we spent $600,000 in the last 2 years just on repairs. So I would like to see us build a new city center.
Yes.
And it needs to be done.
Yes.
Provo's building a new one right now. Linden has one. Springville has one. You can go, Highland has a new city center. All of us had old city centers, and it's to the point that most of us are having to redo our city centers because they're not safe.
Right.
And they're not, they're not using our resources well. They're taking a lot of resources to keep them running.
Right. I've noticed too, Provo and some of the other smaller towns have beautiful rec centers, and
Yes.
Orem has just redone ours. I can't wait to go and see it. And I have to also commend you on our parks.
Yes.
In Orem and Vineyard, the newest park. We have by far the best parks. Best meaning there's activities for all ages and sizes. For parents, there's beautiful areas of sitting for safety.
Let me mention a little bit about the parks.
Yes, please.
We have put in 5 new parks in the last 3 years, and we have done it without raising any taxes. But we've put in an All Abilities Park that was built by 3,200 volunteers, $850,000 through donations and care tax money. And that is a park for disabled children in wheelchairs that can't walk properly, that have lots of different problems. And we have ways for them to put their wheelchair in a swing and swing, to do a zip line. Anyway, it's a very highly populated park from people all over the county. So we have that one. We have a brand new dog park up the edge of the canyon. It's beautiful. We have a brand new bike skills park up there. We put in a new splash pad area for the children. We put in 2 new pickleball parks for a lot of people that love that. And we just put in a foosball court thing for our some of our children. So that is playing soccer on a tennis court size cement pad. And Real out of Salt Lake helped to sponsor that. And then we've also put forth money on a master plan for parks to put in new playground equipment in all of our parks, and we're doing that and have most of them done.
Yeah, it's they're beautiful, and I've
we have a
traveled a
park-
lot, and I have to say, we have the best.
Yes.
These kids are so blessed here,
Yes.
so blessed.
And we have a park by every school in our city.
Yes.
So
That's right.
Which is huge.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. And done excellently. There's not a detail that's been left out. Everything's fresh, well maintained, and again safe.
Yes.
Safety is I think Orem's #1 priority. It's very, very safe out here. My favorite right now, just observing, being a transplant, I'm always looking and seeing, what's going on and how do I add value to the area that I live in, and what are the people about, and I just love cultures, and observing the culture here. And I've seen within the last 3 years an abundance of wealth and prosperity pour into Orem, Utah Valley as a whole, but specifically Orem. You can gauge it by shopping, like you said, the revenue, but also the cars. And in California, where we're from, it's just a given that you see Mercedes and BMWs and Teslas. That wasn't the norm out here. And now you see Ferraris and Jags, and it's just the norm.
A lot of Teslas.
Right?
Yes.
And you told me it was coming. You
Yes.
said 2 years ago, just you wait, it's coming. And it is. And what I see, being from California, one of the attractions is the level of education that we have here, and the balance of work, family, play, and safety. It's uncommon. It's an uncommon lifestyle here. It still takes me back when I see these little kiddos, 1 to 6 years, first to sixth grade, riding their bikes to school. It's just, what? Where's the parents? And
Yes.
Don't get me wrong, the parents are close, but the children have the freedom and the peace that they can walk to school and ride their bikes.
Yes.
And people are catching on and they're coming. But I have to also say that people are bringing their best here. And that I really appreciate, that we're getting the best of the best from around the United States are
Yes.
coming here. And it's really been an amazing experience. Could you share your perspective on what
Sure.
you're
So
seeing?
we have a lot of really strong families here, and as when I've run for mayor for election, I walk the streets. So I knock the doors, and I meet a lot of people in Orem, and there's just a lot of really wonderful, strong people. I was just talking to a lady earlier this week who was mentioning to me that she, in fact, could move out of her neighborhood and be in a different spot, but she doesn't want to. She loves her neighbors. So rather than buy another house, she is building onto her house to make it bigger and more modern, but she doesn't want to leave her neighborhood because she loves it. And I hear that all over the
Yes.
city, where our residents love their neighborhoods and don't want to leave. And our citizens, I think, take pride in keeping their homes and their yards up,
Yes.
and in taking care of their neighbors. And I see that all the time.
Yeah.
Where if somebody has a problem, the neighbors are there to help. And it is just a wonderful thing. The other thing I was going to mention is with 2 universities, and we have a lot of students who go to those and graduate, and I find that they are hardworking. They get married, they're entrepreneurial spirited, and a lot of them start their own businesses or become successful people within another business. And a lot of people just want to have a good family, a good place to work, and a safe environment. And I feel like that's what we have here.
And the people are very welcoming. Very welcoming.
Yes.
As somebody who's not from Utah, I felt exceptionally welcomed. And my neighbors in my neighborhood are like, many of them are second family to us, to
Yes.
our family. And so I really appreciate that. And my parents, when they moved here, they had 13 members of the church there, the ward, come and unpack them. We were unpacked in 45 minutes, and they
Wow.
were blown away. I mean, in fact, drawn to tears, because that's very rare.
Yes.
And that's just an amazing quality that Utahns have, as helping and being there for each other.
Yes. Well, in fact, when my wife and I moved to Orem and we went to build our house, one neighbor came over and said, we can see you're building a new home. We have room in our basement. You're welcome to come live with us for free to oversee what's happening with construction.
Amazing.
And we'd love to have you.
Did you
And
take
that-
them up on the
I
offer?
didn't take them up on it, but that's the kind of people we
Yeah.
have in Orem.
Yes, that's true. The Tech Summit.
Yes.
It's a must for everyone. I didn't feel out of place at all being in the entrepreneur beauty industry. I felt right at home. And I think every entrepreneur, business person, and employees, there was a lot of employees,
Yes.
Adobe, Vivint, in fact, Vivint was a major sponsor there, as well as Homey, should partake in that summit. My line is, if you're in business, you're in tech.
Yes.
They're one and the same.
I agree.
And I wanted to know what your takeaway from the 2020 Tech Summit was, and if it applied to your vision at all for Orem.
So yes, I enjoyed it very much. We had a lot of very famous people there, and not only nationally but locally. But some of the interesting things that I took away was how to do teamwork better. We had a gentleman speak about the ideal team player, but also about some of the goals that our tech companies have for Utah. One of the goals they have is that they would like to have computer science taught in every class within the next 2 years in the state of Utah.
Yes.
Now, I spend some time with the superintendent of the Alpine School District. I ask him about that. I spend time with teachers, and I've come to learn some of the ways that actually could happen, maybe not by 2022, but maybe here in the near future. And I believe that we do need to teach computer science in every class in the state of Utah. And, in speaking with a couple principals, actually, they said, we don't have the money as a school district to hire a tech person who's highly trained. And if they are highly trained and they're a teacher, they leave after a couple of years. But we really would like to get that training in place. And I've since learned of a company that will train and does train teachers here in Utah on computer science for them to be able to teach their classrooms. And so I'm moving forward to get that group working with teachers in other schools to try to move forward for the goal and the vision that was put forward there at the Tech Summit, which I support.
Yeah, that was my takeaway as well. I really grabbed a hold of that and thought that's like a no-brainer. That has to happen. And Californians alone in 2019 added $1.3 billion into the economy. So people are coming, people are staying. And I think with the influx of people coming from around the United States, we're going to see a lot more people staying. As they mentioned at the Tech Summit, they're not having to leave because we have industry here.
Yes.
And Utah also, to their credit, is very self-sufficient, independent of a lot of government regulations. And so they've weathered a lot of storms.
We have one of the lowest government regulations in the country, and Utah is number one in a lot of categories.
Yes.
We have the lowest unemployment rate, highest job growth rate, GDP rate. It's one of the highest. I heard about 2 new companies that are coming in. One of them, his average wage is $110,000 a year.
Yes.
Another one is $80,000 a year. And what they're finding in Utah is they have solid, strong family workers that are well educated, that are smart, and that are adding a lot to their company, and they're coming here because of the great environment that's here.
Yeah.
And then also we just got great recreational facilities here.
We do, and you mentioned that we don't have to choose here between family and work. And there are many places that you have to choose. They don't go together. And here they're making a concerted effort to make sure. In fact, there's a billboard that says coding and still see your family.
Yes.
And I love that. I love that because that's absolutely what the culture is here.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you if you had any other takeaways from climbing your business mountain to success that we could glean from you and we could apply to our lives and our business mountains.
Sure. Well, as you've probably seen, usually I see if I get a no, I'm looking at it and saying, is there really a yes behind that no somewhere? And then to not get offended and to work hard. I've often felt like if you're positive, if you're creative, and if you're willing to put forth the effort, that you can find solutions for some of the problems you face, either personally or as a community or as a city. And so I feel like that has helped me, that training. So the 3 companies I owned were all ones that that I was either a part owner of or a full owner of. And the pipe coating company that I owned, I had to meet a payroll every week for 31 years. There were no guarantees. I had to go out and get the contracts, meet the job requirements, and oftentimes I would run into obstacles where I didn't know if I was going to be able to complete the project as I wanted or be able to get it done. But through creative thinking and positive thinking was able to, and help from another source, I was able to get that done. And so I think that means a lot. And you talked about looking at a problem with the end in mind. Mm-hmm. And I really feel like that means a lot. You need to look at it and say, all right, where is it I want to go? Mm-hmm. And then we'll figure out how I'm going to get there.
That's right.
And instead of worrying about, I haven't got the right vehicle to get there right now, so I can't get there, it's like, all right, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I'll figure a way to get there.
Yeah, brilliant. So, I would like to ask, because I'm hearing a lot of wisdom and favor coming through in everything you do. In the world they would call it, you've got the Midas touch. Everything you touch turns to gold, and gold
I don't know about
sprinkles on everyone who knows you. But just speak to us, how has your faith, and what part of faith have you seen play out in your business and dealings? In mayorship.
Sure. So it's interesting, when I went to BYU, which I graduated from, my parents paid for my first 2 years of my education, paid for my room and board, paid for my tuition, my books. I had an unlimited credit card to pay for food, tires, gas, whatever. After my sophomore year, my parents said the credit card comes back. You're going to have to pay for your own room and board. You're going to have to pay for your own books and your own tuition. And at this point, you're on your own. And so I ended up having to sell my car. Mm-hmm. And I ended up having to work as a janitor from 4 to 7 in the morning, and a job at night, and to pay for my way through school. So at that time, I ended up joining the LDS Church. I came to BYU as a non-member. I joined the church, and then I ended up going on a mission. When I left on my mission, I paid for 1/3, and my ward at home paid for 2/3. So I didn't have a lot of money. Well, when I left on my mission, and then this comes to the part of working and my job, but when I left on my mission, I did not have enough money to buy a suit. I bought a pair of shoes, a couple of white shirts, and that was it. Some friends gave me a coat. I had a blue coat and a blue pair of pants, but they were sport coats, sport pants, and they didn't match. And when I got over to Sweden, which is where I served, and took the place of the elder who was there before me, the elder who was there before me was a 2.5-year missionary, and his parents were well-to-do, and they said, we're sending you a new suit to come home in. You leave everything else there. We don't want you to bring it home after having, used it on your mission. So when I opened up the closet to my new my place where I was going to live, there were 3 suits. There were galoshes, there was a scarf, there was gloves, there was an umbrella, there were shoes, all of them my size, outfitted me for my whole mission. So I learned that faith makes a difference. When I came home, I finished up my education, but I was running into trouble where I just couldn't get enough money to pay my tuition. And I had tried job after job after job. So I finally knelt down in prayer and asked for help to find a job that would pay for my schooling. And I got the impression that I should call up the labor union in town, and they would have a job for me. Now, I've never been part of a labor union. I don't know anything about a labor union. I've never talked to anybody in a labor union. Mm-hmm. And so I opened up the phone book, and I looked under labor unions, and I found one. And I called them up, and I said, I need work. I think you might have some work. Can you tell me? And they said, actually, we do. There's a company over in Vineyard that we think might work for you, so we'll send you over there. So I went over there, and they wanted me to be a laborer in a pipe company. But when I got over there, they said, we actually need some help in the office, and rather than put you in as a laborer, we want you to work in the office. So I said, all right. So I went to work in the office, and I said, I'm trying to finish my schooling, so I have kind of some crazy hours. And they said, well, work around your school requirements, and you come and work here. So I did. And so I worked there for a period of time. And after I graduated, I got accepted to Arizona State University in the MBA program. And but in that process, felt like I should stay with my job. So I asked for a sabbatical, a 1-year sabbatical, which they gave me. And I stayed with the job, and then I ended up liking the job, so I just stayed with it. And I never did go back to get my MBA. But I stayed with the job, and after a period of years, I learned the business well, and the two owners were going to sell, and they mentioned that to another worker and I. And so we decided to band together and put in a bid on the company.
Amazing.
There were two other companies bidding on it that were both bidding higher than what we were bidding because of what we could afford. But I figured that there could be a way to work this out. So I figured out that if I structured the sale of the business in a way that would benefit the owner tax-wise better than what the other offers were, even though they were for more money, that he might be interested in our offer. And he was, and he sold it to us. And then 3 years later, my partner retired, and I acquired his interest. So I own the company. But what's interesting is in that 3-year period, we had a lot of debt to pay off. And in our area, the business went down. So it looked like we were going to go bankrupt. And again, I prayed for help to figure out what I could do, and I got the impression that a job that Questar, our natural gas producer, was doing, if I bid it at cost, that I could get the job, secure the job, and I would make a 10% profit, and it would be enough money to pay the company off, and we would own it free and clear. So I went to my partner, and he said, I don't agree with you. He said, I won't support you in that. And he said, and I don't think that's how it's going to work, and I will not bid a job at cost. And then he slammed the door and walked out. He later came back and said, if you really want to do this, it's all on your head, so if it all falls apart, it's your fault. And he said, I will actually do the work for you, but he said, I don't think you're going down the right path. So anyway, I felt like I was, and I went to Questar, and I bid the job at cost. So no profit, no money to be made, and this is a very large job. It was 250 miles of pipe to process and coat the outside for corrosion protection. And the pipeline goes from Indianola and brings natural gas to Cedar City and St. George, and opened up those cities for natural gas. Anyway, I went to the company, Questar, and I bid it, and they came back, and I'd done work for them before, and they said, we like your bid, we like the work you do, so we're going to give you the contract. They'd already told another company that they had the contract verbally, but had not given them a purchase order, and they came in and said, well, you did this on your own, you came to us, we didn't come to you to get a better price, and your price is better, and you do good work, so we're going to switch suppliers and go with you. So then when we started the project, I went to all the different suppliers of materials, and I said, could I ask for a 10% reduction in your price, because we're a company, I think, that's going to be here for a while. We can bring a lot of business your way, and if we could get this at the start, this could help us secure our business, and it'll be beneficial to you and beneficial to us. Right. I found enough suppliers to agree to cut their prices 10%. We did the job. We completed it ahead of schedule, successfully, and at the end of the day, we made a 10% profit. That profit was big enough that we paid off the owners of the company previously, and we were debt-free, and the company was paid off.
You know, Mayor, what just flashed in my head was Proverbs. Get wisdom. Every single time you got wisdom, and it opened all these doors for you. Amazing testimony. Amazing. Amazing.
So faith has meant a lot.
Yes. Amazing. Well, not only do you know about it, but you're walking it out. You're walking that faith out. And the more you use, the more you get. So
Yes.
that's
One interesting
beautiful.
story about
Yes.
walking it out
Yes.
is when I was running for mayor, I didn't know if I could be successful or not.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a lot of competition,
Mm-hmm.
and you've never done it before,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just not sure.
Mm-hmm.
And my son was on a mission. One son was on a mission in Tacoma, Washington, and I had made shirts that had my name on it for my campaign. And we sent him one, and he put it on, was wearing it, and then was sitting in front of his mission car and put his arms like that and was just standing there. And he looked, and he's a very strong, athletic guy. He looked really strong to me. And the thought came to me is, he's strong. You need to be strong. Just hang in there and be strong, and you can do this. And he actually gave me strength to start, in my walking and knocking and whatnot.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's a beautiful picture. And you got to a place where you were just focused. And I'm a runner, and I always say run your own race, because the moment you're in a heat and you look to the left or the right, you've lost the race. You have to keep your eye on the finish line. And
Very good advice.
Right, and you are always challenging yourself for your time, for your best time. Then you don't worry about what's going on here. And I've heard that throughout your stories. Yeah, I mean, it's no wonder that you are at the top of your mountain. Yeah.
Well, it's nice of you to say.
Any closing thoughts for us, Mayor?
Just that I think that great things can happen here in our wonderful city, and I think that if we, as a community, live as we should and do good things for other people. And one thing I would like to bring up is I think the Utah way is that we collaborate.
Yes.
So we collaborate between business, residents, government, and we're all working for the same goal.
Yes.
And I think communities that do that
Yes.
can succeed and accomplish great things.
Yes, that's absolutely right. Mayor, it's a privilege and an honor to call you friend.
Well, thank you.
And
Same here.
I feel very privileged that I'm in your company, and I feel very honored that you spent this valuable time sharing with us.
Yes.
And my company would like to formally recognize you for your excellence in service. And so we are presenting you with this award, a
Oh, thank you.
certificate of excellence
Sure.
in service in the 12M Mountain, because without great service, none of what you've accomplished would have been possible. And from all of us, we sincerely appreciate you.
Well, thank you. That's very nice. I appreciate that.
Thank you all for viewing in. Please like and share. You don't want to miss out. See you next time. Thank you, Sleepy Ridge, for hosting our show today.